Okay, my friends, it is Saturday, November 23rd, 2024. My name is Darren Gertis. Here are 7 big stories for today. So the first, we're going to start with this. Thousands more North Koreans, it looks like, are headed to Ukraine. We don't know exactly how many are going to get there. I see conflicting reports. At the same time, we see this about North Korea. North Korean troops spotted in Russian-occupied territories of Ukraine. Military advisors from North Korea have arrived in Russian-occupied Mariupol, CNN reports. Previously, their presence in Kharkiv front were reported. Additionally, some North Korean troops were redeployed to border areas of Russia's Belgorod region. South Korean intelligence revealed that in exchange for these troops, Russia provided North Korea with anti-aircraft missiles, air defense equipment. Moscow has also transferred military technology to Pyongyang to support the satellite program. We also know about oil transfer. And yet, Kim Jong-un accuses the U.S. of escalating tensions, warning of unprecedented nuclear war risks. North Korean soldiers in Kursk don't strike him as aggressive and hostile. But see, here's the thing. You have to understand the background with Kim. See, Kim does this, and his dad did this before. Kim, every 5 or so years, he'd, start saber rattling about how we're going to launch these rockets or nuclear this or that or whatever. There's a cycle here. But Kim is doing this now with Russia as a partner. So he's even more emboldened. And emboldened is actually the word that goes through all the what's going on right now. Okay. I was in a video this morning with Anna from Ukraine and operator Starsky. It was a great video. If you have not seen it, you need to watch it. I initially titled it this, call it the Russian, North Korean, Iranian, Chinese war, because that's what Anna said. She said, we're calling it this Ukraine war. It's Russian, North Korea, Iran, China. They're all together working. So I was like, wow, that's actually freaking brilliant, because it is. It's like we need to think in terms of what we're saying and what we're actually communicating when we use the language. And then a little bit later, I decided, no, let's not use that as a title. Reasons for realistic optimism, because I left this thing so buoyant, because like they're optimistic and they have realistic optimism. It's not just like, it doesn't matter what's going to happen, we're going to win. It wasn't like that at all. Starsky was talking about how, like, after the election, this was weird, but Ukrainians were like trying to buoy Westerners for feeling, better about, okay, it'll be okay. Trump will be all right. Well, like what a weird place to be in. But these guys were just so optimistic about what the future is going to be like. Please watch this video. If you're at all interested in either Anna or Starsky, please watch this video. You just go back a video or two. Okay. Let's get on to the next big story. This Russian strike, and here we're talking about Putin's launch of an experimental ballistic missile against Dnipro, isn't just an escalation, it's a calculated act of T. Now, General Ben Hodges said this Russian strike also reveals how much they dread Ukraine having ATACMS and Storm Shadows due to their effectiveness. We should have done this from the beginning. Absolutely, we should have done it. It's so little, so late, but they are flipping out about long-range strikes into Russia. Here he's talking about the ICBM missile can hit targets throughout Europe, Russian Strategic Missile Forces chief said. Now, when you see a bully acts in a fairly predictable way, and that's what they're doing. I've been into martial arts for many years. I've never seen somebody go and do that kind of thing, like to act like they know what they're doing, who actually knew what they were doing. A real martial artist will just reposition himself so that when you hit at him, you're going to regret it, because he's going to kick your face off or grab you or do something. He's going to just position himself quietly. That's not what they're doing here. And the same thing is happening in geopolitics as happens with individuals. Okay. The head of the state Duma Defense Committee stated that Western countries should fear and tremble. Okay, let them fear and tremble. Our cause is just. Victory will be ours. As he added that the special operation in Ukraine, quote, will continue at its own pace until all objectives are achieved. Well, that was interesting that he said at its own pace until all objectives are achieved. It's almost like he's conceding that it's not going well. 3 days, 3 weeks. 1,000 days later, and okay. Russian propagandists are threatening Europeans with strikes on European cities, saying Russia will warn them and then watch how they leave in lines. Okay, sure they are. This is more bluster. This is wow, right? You've got to think about this though. We've not done anything that has we've allowed them to escalate and escalate and escalate, and they're being emboldened. Now, this is Senator Rounds. He's a Republican senator from South Dakota saying, it's time to take a hard look at ourselves. Do you believe that this tyrant, if you offer him a part of a free country, do you think he's going to stop? Like, he thinks he's getting away with stuff. If you keep feeding him, he's going to want more. Okay. And then here is a fighter bomber. This is Jay in Kyiv talking about Russian military blogger. Fighter bomber rightly says that the West's lack of response to Russia's missile yesterday means that Putin can nuke Ukraine and face no consequences. Again, we're talking about emboldening. Western weakness is the cause of everything Russia is doing and everything that they will do to the world. And Fighter Bomber actually said this: it has finally become clear that no one will start a nuclear war with Russia for Ukraine. And therefore, we can state that Russia has completely free hand in using nuclear weapons against military facilities in Ukraine. Well, there will be some sanctions and maybe an iron curtain from certain countries, condemnation threats, statements in the style of, we are very sorry. Like, they're emboldened. Meanwhile, Dmitry Peskov is talking about mobilization, and he's saying there's no need for mobilization in Russia since Russians themselves are actively signing contracts. Okay, so that first part is you don't need it, but it's because there's plenty signing up for it, which means that you're backfilling lots of losses. Okay, with the Ministry of Defense to participate in the war. So that's interesting. Why is Russia looking for mercenaries around the globe and asks the DPRK for soldiers if they don't really need more soldiers? But of course, they do actually need more soldiers. Their casualties this year, as opposed to last year, are 2.5 times bigger than it was just a year ago. So they need it. Now, there's also, at the same time, a survey showing that there's lower support in Russia for the war. So the results have shifted. 52%, that's 52% of Russians now support negotiations, while only about a third are in favor of continuing the war. So when someone says that Ukrainians are tired, but Russians are not, show them this, right? This has shifted over time. This blue line is moved to negotiations, and it's been going up. And it's probably going to continue to go up with heavy losses mounting. Now, Russia's mitigating the lack of supply of soldiers with a demand push through higher bonuses. But Russia's paying soldiers lump sums is not a method to get people to join the military, according to Andrew Perpetua. Paying them is a way to make people not care of how many soldiers die. I think it's both at the same time. It's an interesting comment that he's saying that this is what's happening. No, they need to keep paying higher bonuses to cause them to join the military. Without that, I think they would have a real significant problem. But at the same time, when they pay them and they join voluntarily, they sign a contract, they're like, well, you know, they knew what they were getting into. Meanwhile, Polish farmers are blocking the border again. Protesters have halted truck traffic leaving Ukraine. Vehicles entering Ukraine from Poland are restricted to 1 per hour. So the farmers are out there doing it again. Hopefully, this will not last very long. Okay, let's turn our attention to U.S. politics. So Secretary General Rutte met with Trump. Now, these two actually get along very well. They got along in his first administration, and they get along now. According to the Alliance Press Service, they discussed a range of global security issues. Rutte also met with Trump's team. And so, while the team might not like him, Trump is really big on personal relations. That's the way that he operates, and that's good for Rutte, where it wasn't good for Stoltenberg. Trump considers Richard Grenell as a special envoy for Russia-Ukraine war. So this would be the chief negotiator to be involved. Former intelligence chief Richard Grenell may be selected as Donald Trump's special envoy for addressing Russia-Ukraine war, according to Reuters. Grenell, who served as Trump's ambassador to Germany and acted as the director of national intelligence, he was acting director, so he's no slouch. He's got a background, but I'm a little skeptical that this is the guy that's going to be able to be useful to Ukraine During a Bloomberg roundtable in July, he suggested establishing autonomous zones to resolve the conflict and indicated that he would not support Ukraine's immediate NATO membership. Again, both of these things seem to be stacked more against Ukraine than something that's going to be good for Ukraine. Now, there's an interesting wrinkle here. Grenell was sworn in by Pence in 2018, making him the highest ranking openly gay U.S. ambassador. Grenell was also under consideration for U.S. ambassador to NATO and U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. That's what Haley was. So it'll be interesting to see just how Putin deals with Richard Grenell. In other news, Tulsi Gabbard, Trump's pick for DNI, said that we should drop all charges on Russian citizen Edward Snowden, who somehow got top secret documents from Mike Flynn while he was DIA director just before he enabled Putin to invade Crimea. Gabbard is just, she's a painful choice. I hope that Gabbard gets sidelined because she will just be all bad. She might be a pleasant human being, but a pick for director of national security, this is the wrong person. And here's what I mean. Tulsi Gabbard, Donald Trump's pick to lead the intelligence community, was briefly placed on TSA list that prompts additional security screening before flights after her overseas travel patterns and foreign connections triggered a government algorithm earlier this year. There's just something wrong with Gabbard. Beyond her stated policies, there's just something that feels off. Now, here's some better news. Now, the comment here was another pro-Russian to be appointed by Trump. I don't think that that's what he is. This is Sebastian Gorka. Sebastian Gorka is a conservative war hawk that's been kind of MAGA-ish, but he's still a conservative. I remember early on in the war, he was the one that said, what would Reagan do? Like, he was arguing with Charlie Kirk and some others. He and Dennis Prager, and I can't remember who the third conservative was, were arguing with some other conservatives, including Charlie Kirk and a few others, and saying, okay, why are you not supporting Ukraine? This doesn't make any sense. And the question that he came back to was, what would Ronald Reagan do? And that clarified things for him. That's exactly how I approached it. So I think that he's actually a really good appointment. You've got to understand something about Republicans. There are old school conservatives like me. Then there are conservatives who are kind of talking a MAGA-like line, and that's kind of a middle ground. And then there's just like MAGA, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think he's in the middle, who's really solidly ideologically conservative, but he might be sounding somewhat MAGA because this is kind of how the party has shifted over time. I think he'll be a good pick. Donald Trump announces he is appointing Sebastian Gorka as his deputy assistant and senior director for counterterrorism in the National Security Council. It won't directly affect Ukraine, but the more personnel is policy, and the more people that you have that are good people that kind of still morally support Ukraine, the better. Okay, so we're talking about these nominees, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is in the war room talking about this. Whoever he nominates and appoints, you better pass them through the Senate. That's your job. You say yes, sir, and you get it done. Okay, it's embarrassing what she says sometimes because that is not the role of the Senate. Now, I personally believe that a president should be able to, generally speaking, pick his team. Like, you shouldn't get in the way with that without really important reasons. Now, Tulsi Gabbard is one of those exceptional reasons. And what the founding fathers actually did in the United States is set up a system of advise and consent. That is, the president picks, and then the Senate has to confirm. If the Senate does not confirm, if they know some reasons why there's some problem with one of the nominees, they don't have to confirm. So what she's saying is just plain wrong. Lithuania to fund production of long-range drones in Ukraine. We saw this with another country. I want to say it was Sweden or Norway, or I can't remember. Yeah, it's just so much all the time. But this is the way forward. There's two ways. Well, there's three ways forward. One, Trump supports things. Two, Trump doesn't support things, but Trump wants to make deals, and Europeans buy American weapons with which they support Ukraine. And Trump's going to go, well, I made a deal. Look at this. How awesome am I? I sold them these weapons. Biden was being a chump, but I made this deal. That's a second way forward. And a third way forward is that even if Ukraine is cut off by the United States, if they can fund the production of domestic rockets, they can still keep punching back. And so this is very important for that reason. This is Jake Bro. He's talking about how he has over 20,000 followers on the other site, talking about Blue Sky now in less than 2 weeks. And his engagement over there for identical posts is easily 3 times that of Twitter. I talked about this in this video. I tested Twitter and Blue Sky, and what I found was remarkable. I'm about to put out another video testing something else. I'll do that tomorrow. But in the meantime, please join me on Blue Sky as well. It's like Twitter, except people actually talk to you and there's no bots harassing you. It's pretty remarkable what's going on over there in Blue Sky. Now let's also look at Jake Bro's Christmas Convoy donation page. It's up to $728,947 at the moment that I'm recording right now. So good on Jake. That's awesome that he's gotten that far. Okay, last little bit. Ukraine's ultimate secret weapon revealed. There you are. All right, my friends, that's all that that's all that I have. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.